Okay. But I would like to first start off thanking you so much, Jennifer, for coming today and for speaking to us here at SFCC. Um, for you all who don't know Jennifer, it's just a pleasure to have her here, and I'm really excited about what she's going to share with us. Jennifer Jordan is an open educational resource librarian at UNM, and she has a lot of really valuable experience that she's going to share. She has experience creating and adopting OER for classes. She was a presidential fellow at CNM's OER initiative, where she co-created the English department's open resource textbooks, which are currently being used. And she knows that the textbooks that were created by the English department at CNM have saved students hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years that they've been used. At CNM, she also administered the Adopt, Adapt, Create program, which incentivized faculty to integrate open educational resources into their courses. Jennifer is the principal investigator for a $2.125 million federal open textbook grant that was awarded at the end of last year. And so she's leading the way for creating new open educational resources in New Mexico and really spearheading the work that's being done to create a consortium to help faculty all over the state adopt, adapt, and create OER for our students. SFCC is a participant in this new consortium, and so we'll have access to funds from the grant that Jennifer received over the next 3 years, and the grants will support OER initiatives here at SFCC. And I hope she'll talk a bit more about this from the UNM side in her presentation. So I'm really excited to be working with Jennifer on this initiative. Her wealth of experience, both as a librarian and as a faculty member and as a community builder, is just something that we are all going to be able to take advantage of, and I'm really looking forward to that. So Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us today and
Thank
teaching
you.
us everything we need to know.
Thank you. That was such a great introduction. I'm going to go back and transcribe it and use it in the future. That was so nice. Thank you. So like Val said, I am the OER librarian at UNM, and I had a little introductory slide. So let me go ahead and try to, yay. So this is just a goofy get to know you little slide. So like Val said, I started my higher education career as an English faculty member, and I love to geek out on OER, and I also occasionally wear felt. And I thought, since there's not that many people who are here, we could just go around and I could learn your names, and maybe you could tell me your disciplines. And then how about what's the most you've ever paid for a textbook? And so we can just go around and say that. I would have loved that. Go ahead, anybody.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start. I'm Sarah Hood, and I'm a reference and instruction librarian here at SOCC, so I work with Val. Ooh, I mean, it's been a long time since I bought a textbook, probably since undergrad years, excuse me, my library school years, which was quite a while ago. I recently got a graduate certificate, but we didn't use textbooks that we had to pay for. I don't know, gosh, probably like 200 or something.
Yeah, me too. About maybe 150, because I was the humanities major, so that helped. How about, thank you, Sarah. Dawn, would you like to go next?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, Jennifer. Lovely that you are felt. That's and I'm Dawn Wink, and I'm the director of the Department of Teacher Education here at SFCC. I was just racking my brain. I was trying to think. I think it was my undergrad years also. And oh gosh, I probably around 200. I'm gonna probably somewhere up there with
Yeah.
Sarah. So I was an international relations major, so I didn't have to buy those chemistry texts. So I would say probably around, yeah.
Thank you. How about Ivan? Would you like to go next, or Yvonne? I'm not sure.
This is Ivan, that's the Spanish version. I am a new employee here. Okay, I'm the Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs. I think it was for my PhD the last time that I purchased a textbook. Probably was a used book, okay, maybe 100, okay, but right now, okay, I have a daughter in college, okay, and probably it's 250, okay, what we pay for her, sometimes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Nice to meet you. How about Ty?
Hi, I'm Ty McCormick. Can you hear me okay? So I'm the 9-month controlled environment agriculture teacher. And I think the most I paid was at Michigan State University, and it was like $130 or something for one of the basic science courses. I don't remember what text, but nice to meet you,
Nice to
Jennifer.
meet you. Thank you. And how about William?
Well, howdy there. Last time when I was, sorry, I'll start with what I teach. I teach business and marketing. I have a background in hospitality and restaurant management also, and I'll be teaching those in the future. Let's see, last time I paid for a book was my undergraduate years, and that was around $150. When I studied in Australia and Europe, books were included with the tuition, so that was not a separate fee. So I find it kind of a separate, it was kind of confusing and frustrating when how to purchase books here.
Yeah, I bet. It is it's confusing and frustrating for all of us. John, would you like to go next?
Hi, my name is John Gorman. I'm the director of distance education here at the Santa Fe Community College, but I am also a part-time adjunct. I teach courses in human services. And my students, I've noticed some of their textbooks are anywhere from, I would say, $70 up to $124. A lot of the companies, textbook publishers, they do offer an ebook, but it seems, give an example, a class I'm teaching later this October, the ebook actually costs more than the hard copy, which I thought was strange. The ebook was $75 and the hard copy was $63. But anyway, and last textbooks I bought was in graduate school, but I remember even small little paperback books ran, some of them were over $100.
Thank you. How about who else? We have Harriet.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
It's a wonder. I'm Harriet Micklejohn, and I'm the technical services librarian in the library, which means I do cataloging and interlibrary loan. My first advanced degree is in a master's degree in classical and Near Eastern archaeology, and you can imagine how expensive those books were. You needed big, glossy art history type books.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. How about we have, I think, Julia? Did you go?
I haven't yet, but
Okay.
I can. Let's see. I'm Julia Duncan. I'm an instructional designer / tech for the online teaching and learning department here at SFCC. I'm a relatively recent graduate of a master's program in IO psychology, so I'm in the humanities area as well. Probably the most expensive textbook I have recently had to purchase was around $150. That was for like the math and sciences part of the requirements actually at UNM.
Yeah. Yeah, those were my most expensive books too. The ones not in my major.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I think last is Steve.
Hi, Steve Martinez here. I'm a history professor at the college. All of my classes are OER. I've been doing for the last 5 years. I got involved in OER as Achieving the Dream, and I'm kind of one of the lead is heading up OER initiatives at the college. And I can't say enough about the work that Val has done to help faculty members at the college. So I'm very fortunate and very blessed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and just hit the ground running with the material that I have here for you. This is just a little bit about the agenda, what we're going to go over. And then how about we go? Okay, so I have this slide to just tell you a little bit about this Department of Education grant and what is included within it. So the way that the grant asked for people to apply for money to support consortiums or to create consortiums. So we didn't have one in New Mexico. So just really quick, Val agreed to jump on board with us. And so did CNM, Central New Mexico Community College. So together we're going to be the beginning of the consortium. And so it's a 3-year grant. And what we want to do is in the beginning of the grant cycle, like year 1, kind of just work on developing our processes for how people can get involved with the consortium. So we're going to work with our 2 sub-awardees to just kind of like streamline the process of how do you join the consortium? How do you contribute materials to the consortium? So it's kind of like a work in progress, and we're developing the processes as we move along. So we have those 2 sub-awardees, and then at UNM, so to kind of like give the Department of Ed some concrete numbers, what we already have at UNM is we've identified courses where the faculty members are going to transition to OER. So at UNM, we already know who's going to receive money. And so we have actually 4 chemistry teachers. We have the first 2 Gen Ed Chem classes, or maybe not the first 2, but it's Gen Chem 1 and Gen Chem 2. We have 2 lecturers who are going to develop materials for that. And then we have also the instructor who runs the labs. He's in charge of labs. He's going to make some OER lab manuals. And then we have also there's also quantitative chemical analysis. And that book new is like $325. But the professor who teaches that has told me nobody really pays that. They all buy it on Amazon for like $240. But still, that's a lot of money. And then we have also an education teacher who is developing a course with OER, and it is a class where it teaches future teachers how to teach writing. It's like writing pedagogy for teachers of writing, teachers who are going to work with younger students to teach them how to write. So it's a really cool, it sounds like a really awesome class. So we have those folks who are on board. And then so I'm the principal investigator, kind of running all this. We're going to hire a project coordinator to help run the everyday kind of like tasks of the grant, program coordinator, but that person hasn't been hired yet. And then the co-PI is Elisha Allen, and he is the director of online strategies and academic technologies at UNM. And so he's helping with he helps me with figuring out how to move things along in academia, which is really super confusing. But then also he is helping to move our subscription to Pressbooks along, and then also to help us figure out how to get, because we want to use Pressbooks as the platform for the books. And then Pressbooks also has the option of, I don't know if y'all have seen Pressbooks. I could show you, I could just give you a link to the directory, the Pressbooks directory, and I'll pop it in the chat. But so we want to use this platform. And the reason why we like it is because it, like one reason is that teachers can, start a course and then, or start a book and then import materials from other Pressbooks like pretty easily. And then it's built for OER materials. And then it can also integrate with our learning management system. So we're going to figure that out throughout this project. And then also, like, our hope is that the people who are in the consortium would also be able to integrate Pressbooks into their LMSs as well, but that takes a long time to kind of move that along. Like at UNM, it could take like up to a year. So we started the process integrating the software into the LMS can take up to a year. Actually, getting the subscription won't take as long. We're working on that right now with some of our faculty authors. But there's so many different ways you can integrate OER into your course. You don't have to create stuff. You could just adapt or adopt, and I'll talk about that in this presentation. Other departments that we're going to work with at UNM are UNM Press. And so we're working with the director of UNM Press. He's going to hire an editor and a multimedia specialist to help faculty with creating materials and editing materials. We're also working with the Center for Teaching and Learning. The associate director over there is going to help us with like looking at alignment of materials, maybe looking at accessibility of materials. And then also at UNM, we have the Institute of Design and Innovation, and they are going to work with us to gather data so that we can measure like how are students doing with the OER? Are their grades getting better with OER? How's attrition, withdrawal rates, things like that. And then we're gonna like survey faculty and students. And so they're gonna help us with gathering that information. And then lastly, part of this grant, one big purpose of the grant is to prepare students to go out into the workforce with the materials they've learned from that are OER, right? So they want for the OER materials to help students get jobs right out of the gate. So we have a workforce advisory board that's going to work with us to look at the materials that we are producing and just kind of like evaluating them for like how like the material or like the outcomes and the things that students are learning in the courses. Is it covering everything that students would need to know if they're out in their different fields? And so the Workforce Advisory Board consists of, we have Workforce Connections, UNM Hospital, the Bureau of Economic Research, Bureau of Business Economic Research at UNM. So they do a lot of different forecasting for jobs and industry. I'm totally messing up that summary because they do lots of stuff and the woman explained it to me, but I'll learn it eventually. And then we have the New Mexico Black Leadership Council. And so those are our four so far that we have, and they're going to help us evaluate the materials and get them ready for our to help our students, so that they're using the materials and moving out into the workforce pretty seamlessly. Those are the goals. That's a lot of goals. So that's kind of how the grant is going to work. Year one, we're setting up the processes. Year two will be hopefully piloting materials. And then year three, hopefully, like the plan is, we'll have the processes in place, we'll have materials ready to go, and then we'll move out into other, like we'll invite other New Mexico institutions, let them sort of invite them to join the consortium if they like, or to use the materials, or to also benefit from what we want to also do is create like an OER hub at UNM to help people with integrating OER into their courses. So that's some of what we're doing. I mean, big picture goals of the grant are to help students make education more equitable, grow OER in New Mexico, save students money, and support faculty, and then also create this consortium. So it's a lot of stuff that we're working on and a lot of different moving parts. We were super lucky that the Department of Ed chose our application because they only chose like 6 out of the whole nation. And so I wasn't expecting to get this. I was pretty shocked when they said, yeah, we'll give you $2.125 million. So I thought what we could do is just take a little temperature check and see, I'm trying to, I don't know if y'all can use your, I don't know if on your screen you're able to get to this QR code, but there's also this link. So I was hoping to just have y'all do like a little temperature check. And
It should work. I've done this. Yeah, in fact, I'm doing it right now. So this QR
Is it
code
good?
should work
We're
if
good?
people.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stop sharing the PowerPoint and then I'm going to pull up the Menti screen. And so you can just open this link. Actually, I could put it in the chat too. And then you can just fill it out and we'll check and see what people are writing. So let me go ahead and I'll put the link in the chat. And then I will share screen. No, of course it's not gonna be a link that I would like. Let me try again.
The hot link is working.
The hot link is working?
Yeah.
It is?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because I was like, why? I don't like that it's doing a picture. Okay, great. So then let me share screen and get to this. Oh, you're already okay. You guys are so good. I love it. I love teaching teachers because they're such good students. All right, so we have what comes to mind when you think about using OER in your courses? So yeah, just go ahead and you can fill out whatever you like. Student-centered, equity, timely, free, access. These are all really positive descriptions, which is awesome. It's okay if you have other opinions because sometimes there's people who are like, OER is too much work and I don't want to do it. Or, you know, it does take a lot of time. High workload, yeah. I think that's like the realistic aspect of it, like if I was to come in here and be like, this is so great and easy, like I don't want to mislead you. It can be a lot of work to develop this material, and then also ongoing to like assess your materials and then revise them. It can take a lot of work. So this is awesome. Thank you. So we have awesome is one of the descriptions. No cost for the students, right? But the more I'm doing this, it's like we have to spend money to do things for free. So definitely no cost for the students, but there's so many other costs for faculty, right? Like time, energy. And so that's what the grant is really kind of like. One of my hopes for the grant is to help people with that workload. But yeah, hopefully OER would be interactive, affordable, accessible, and helpful for students. So thanks everybody for doing that. I'm going to navigate back to the PowerPoint. And let me see. Okay, so I'm just going to do I'm going to talk a little bit about OER, a little bit about licenses and things like that. and give you a definition. So for some of you, or maybe for most of you, this might be like old hat. But basically, open educational resources are teaching and learning materials that are free. They have an open license, and faculty members can do different things with the material that are not allowed with a traditional copyright. So we have the 5 R's. So this definition is adapted from David Wiley's blog, but he talks about the 5 R's of OER. So you can, at the very least, with an open educational resource, you can own and control a copy of the content, depending on the license. The licenses that are no derivatives, you can't change them, but you can share them as much as you like, which is, even doing that would be a violation of copyright. So the strictest open license lets you share as much as you want, and reuse the material as much as you want as well. If it has a more open license, then you can adapt, adjust, or modify, improve. You can change the material, you can revise it. If it has an even more open license, you can remix. And so remix means like you take materials from maybe at least a couple of OER sources, and if they have compatible licenses, you can join them together and create something new. And then you could actually relicense it with you sort of as the creator of the content, but you would always need to cite the person who originally created the work. And that would be, your basic like attribution. You always want to have an attribution in your OER materials if you're remixing. And then redistribute. So you can share copies of your original content, revisions, with others. So these are the 6 different licenses. So we have these different acronyms that tell you what you can do with the materials. So CC just means it's a Creative Commons license. All of the Creative Commons licenses have this BY, which means you need to attribute. So CC BY is your most open Creative Commons license besides public domain. And if you use something or you remix it and the original license of the material is CC BY, then you need to just always attribute. So always tell the reader where the material came from. Underneath that, there's this little sort of like list goes from most free to least free. So the next most open would be share alike. So share alike means that if you take material and you adapt it and then you relicense it, it needs to have a similar license. Like if it says share alike, you can't relicense it and make it more strict or less strict. It has to be the same amount of open. Share alike for me was the most difficult concept to understand. I thought it meant you had to share it always in the same kind of format. Like you got it as a PDF, you had to share it like PDF. Like my understanding of it was like so confusing. But it makes more sense now. NC means non-commercial use, so you can't charge people for access to the material. And then ND means no derivatives. You can't change the material, but you can share it as much as you like. And so these different licenses, these different acronyms are sort of used on the different licenses, and they tell you basically what you can do with the material. If you just want to adopt open materials, then you don't even really need to completely understand how to use all these licenses. If it has a CC, you can use it and redistribute it as much as you like. But say you want to synthesize the material or remix it, there's, with the licenses, there's these different legalities, and you just want to make sure that if you're combining materials, they have a compatible license. So this is like probably painful for your eyes. And you don't have to understand this, but I mean, you can just like know this is part of the process if you want to synthesize the materials. And then you can always ask for help if you want to put materials together. So if you want to synthesize things, you can't combine, if it's ND, you can't change it at all. If it has share alike in the license, you can't combine it with a non-commercial use because that is they're not the same amount of strict, right? Like the NC and the SA, they just can't work together. But let me see. It looks like you can combine the NCSA with the BYNC. This is also getting into the weeds. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide. So to give you a little bit of background, this might be overkill, but there's like 3 different layers of Creative Commons licenses. And so, oh my gosh, I love the chart. Yeah, and I can also just share the presentation with you too. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this, and then I'm going to go to, I have this, I just found this the other day. I was like stoked. Let me see. This is like a little interactive visual that kind of explains the different layers of your Creative Commons licenses. So if you have a license, if you want to license your material correctly, like you can, there's different things that you need to remember to do. If you use this is the Creative Commons license chooser. And it can help you to format when you're creating your attributions. But so basically, let me get back to this. The license has 3 different layers. So if you are, this aspect of it, the machine readable lace part of it is, let me see, let me go to this one. Each license has a traditional legal tool. So what's really super important if you want to license something is that you link back to the page where the legal contract is. So whenever you're citing something, you want to make sure that you link back to the actual contract online. And so you can just hyperlink that. So that's one part of having a Creative Commons license, and maybe I'm getting too much in the weeds. But so this is the legal code layer of the license. So what you always want to do if you create an attribution is link back to the legal code, the legal link for the contract on the Creative Commons website. Another aspect of the license is that it is available, the human readable deed. So this is sort of like the part of the license where you know, a layperson can read it and understand, oh, I can do this, this, and this with the license. So here's this is it tells you what you can do. So you can share, you can adapt if it's a CC BY license. And they changed this website. That's why I'm like, why does this look different? So that's why I'm kind of thrown a little bit by it. And then the last part of it is when you create the license, if you create the license with the chooser, it'll put all this material together for you. But if you kind of create the attribution correctly, then what'll happen is like Google will be able to read the license and kind of like filter like results based on license. So like if you go into advanced search for Google and you want to filter by license. If you create a Creative Commons license attribution with this 3 layers, then Google will be able to find materials for you. So maybe this is too much, but anyway. And then a link to the okay, someone found the compatibility chart. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint really quick. Okay, so there's the 3 layers of the licenses. And this is your Creative Commons chooser. So you can use this website to help you create an attribution. Would you all like me to show you how it works, or should I just keep going?
I think you can keep going. We'll
Keep
play with
going?
it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So definitely play with the links if you want. And this license chooser is really cool because you can, you punch in the information for like how you like, it'll ask you how you want to distribute the material. Do you want people to be able to not charge money? Do you want for people to have the same license? And then you punch in those bubbles and then it'll produce the license for you. So that's just a little bit of info about the licenses. And then here I'm going to transition from that terrible legal discussion to finding free curriculum, which is the fun part of doing this. So I put a couple of starting places for faculty for finding OER materials. We have my library guide, which has introductions to OERs, discussions of licenses and where to find OER materials. And then Santa Fe Community College also has a really awesome LibGuide too. And so I linked that in here. And you've all probably seen this already. But both of these websites, you can kind of go through here and find different repositories and repertories where you can access free curriculum. So, and then I just have lists of some different repositories that you might want to check out if you're looking for OER materials. So OER Commons is a good one. It has books, lesson plans. You can find all sorts of materials in this platform. You can filter it by education level, subject, and then once you get in there and you do a search, you can look in the metadata and it'll tell you what the license is. So this one's really great. You can also, if you like this platform, you can create an account and upload your own materials into it. And there's also the Open Textbook Library. So there's over 1,200 textbooks. UNM is a member of the Open Education Network, which runs the Open Textbook Library, and they are really super helpful. The other nice thing about the Open Textbook Library, I didn't mean to go forward, is that they have a review system. And so if you're a member of the Open Education Network, you can have different workshops, and then your faculty can review the materials, and then they have really helpful sort of rubrics that people can fill out. But if you just go into the Open Textbook Library and you look for a book, chances are it's going to already have been reviewed by other faculty, and all the reviews are from faculty who've gone through a workshop, and they are from member institutions of the Open Ed Network. So they're good sources of for how to evaluate the materials. So Open Textbook Library is a good one. LibreTexts is free to use. You can make books on here. They also have courseware that you can use or that you can develop. You can develop courseware through this website. It was created by a chemistry professor at UC Davis, and then he got this another Department of Education grant recipient, and I mean, he just really grew this platform into something that's pretty amazing. You can integrate the material into your LMS if your university or college will allow you to. So they don't have all of the requirements that UNM like requires of an outside sort of vendor to integrate into the LMS, because UNM's really super strict about, well, it's understandable, but you know, privacy and things like that. So they haven't like done every single thing that UNM wants for them to do. So we can't integrate them into our LMS. I would like for this to be an option for us because it's free, but unfortunately, we can't use it. So, and then we have one more. Let me see. I think Pressbooks. So Pressbooks is the platform that we're going to use. And they have about 6,000 open access books right now. But they're growing all the time. And there's probably, I mean, I took a snapshot of this, a screenshot of this like a couple of days ago, and they probably have more. But the nice thing about Pressbooks is that it's created specifically for OER. And they have a bunch of different materials, and they also, the great thing about Pressbooks that I didn't mention before is that they have these different like tools you can use to make the content interactive. They have HTML5 capabilities. They have like, you know, for the science disciplines, they have different sort of like, I'm totally messing this up because I was an English major, but I think it's called LaTeX, and so you can create equations with that tool. So there's these different repositories. You can check them out. You can go to our LibGuides and begin looking for OER materials. You can also find OER materials just through Google. You could do a Google search and you could filter by license. And that's another way to do it. There's another sort of, it's called a meta finder, and both of our LibGuides link to it, but it's called Oasis, and it searches a bunch of different institutional repositories. So you can find things that maybe wouldn't come up as quickly on a Google search that might be a little bit more buried. You can find them through these different tools. So for me, this is super fun because I'm like, yeah, let's find like the missing puzzle piece and find the material. But like for faculty, may not always be quite as fun. But that's what librarians are here for, and librarians can help you navigate those systems and help you find the materials. But so one other thing that you want to consider when you're looking at OER materials is, just like if you're evaluating a textbook, you want to evaluate your OER materials. Some of the criteria for evaluating OER are similar to textbook evaluation. Like you want to make sure it covers the subject area appropriately. But with the publisher textbook, you don't usually have to make sure it's free of major errors and spelling mistakes because they have editors. You want to consider the license of the content. Can you use it the way that you want to? That doesn't apply to publisher textbooks because they're all traditionally copyrighted. You want to make sure I think this applies to textbook evaluation too, that the OER's clearly written and appropriate for the student's level of understanding. So some ways that people adopt materials are maybe they found something good, but it's like maybe too high of a lexile level for their level of student. You may need to go through and just make it clearer and maybe kind of like take out some of the jargon so your freshman and sophomore students can understand it. And then you also want to make sure that it's accessible. So this also you may not have to do with publisher textbooks because they have to do this ahead of time. But if you're making materials or you're evaluating materials, you want to make sure that they are accessible. And let me see. Okay. Yes, and there's also OpenStax. OpenStax is great and Lumen Learning is great too. There's so many different places that you can find materials there, and we do have more listed on our LibGuides. There's like OpenCourseWare through MIT. There's so many different places you can find materials. OpenStax also now has an English textbook, and I was super stoked about that, and it's really good. So how about we do another Menti? Let's break this up, all of this talking, right? And if you could just pull up this link, it's in the chat. And then do you have concerns about using OER in your courses? What are they? Or any other thoughts about what comes to mind when you think about OER? And I'm going to stop sharing that and I'm going to pull up the Menti page. Let me see. Oh, look at this. You're so great. I'm going to share this screen. Okay. Learning about OER to support the initiative. OER can be out of date. I agree with that wholeheartedly. When we created the OER for English back in 2015, the materials that we found, some of them were like, had a little bit of sexism, a little bit of racism. So we had to go through and fix it for that because they were like old school English books. Sarah?
Yeah, is anyone else getting the same poll? It's not a new poll, it's the one from when you first started. At least for me.
Is there like an arrow that you can click at the bottom that'll let you navigate to?
Yeah, you have to skip past the questions you've already answered. And I think it will let you do that. It let me, I answered the first question again, and then it let me skip to the third one.
Oh, because it won't let me skip. I have to submit an answer. How familiar are you with open educational resources? I'll just say I'm a newbie, and I guess I'll have to submit that again. What comes to mind when you think about, yeah, I'm getting the same.
Yeah, you can skip that one, Sarah. I think it'll let you. And then you can go.
What do I click on? It says submit, and then I have a pink.
Just click submit and then continue.
You don't seem to have given any input. Do you want to continue without voting?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Can you hear my dog?
You have to go through the whole, I guess you have to go through the whole first one again to get to the second one.
Maybe
yeah, and just leave it open. Don't close the page so you can navigate back to it.
And then I finished the first poll again, and then it said, thank you for joining. Sign up for Mentimeter, send me the results, or join another presentation.
How about you could just put your answer in the chat? Let's do it the old-fashioned way.
Okay, what was the question?
What kind of OER project would you like to pursue? What's your course subject? Do you want to adapt, adopt, create?
Oh, I thought that was because I already did that. I thought that was the first poll.
Oh.
Okay, never mind. Sorry about that. I don't know. I guess I'm confused. I already answered those questions at the beginning of the presentation.
You're just an overachiever. That's what it is.
I guess, sorry.
So some people want to adapt. We have someone who said they want to do a Frankenbook that combines a bunch of different materials. And I think that's great. There's different ways that you can do that too. You can make a collection where you have, like, you don't have to take all the materials and synthesize them together and create something new. You could just have a collection of things that all have different licenses. We created our very first press book at UNM, well, that I know of. Let me see. is this core writing one, and this is a collection. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat, but you can see, so this is what Pressbooks looks like. And then, let's see. So this is what Pressbooks looks like. And then kind of each of these pages has a different license. So it's more like an anthology. So down here we have, this is how this is licensed. And each of these pages has a different kind of a license. So that we're calling it a collection makes this okay. The thing about the OER world is that people are so nice and they like to give things away for free. And so usually, like, say you mess up with how you license the materials, people are usually pretty forgiving. And with the latest iteration of Creative Commons 4.0, it's built in there that you are allowed 30 days if you make a mistake with your attributions or you don't conform to all of the rules, you have 30 days to fix it. And they can't like sue you. So the earlier iterations of the licenses, there were little loopholes where there actually sometimes are predatory people who want to kind of make money if you don't attribute their materials correctly, but it's usually like 2.0, CC BY 2.0 or 2.5. There have been like photographers who've put their materials out there, and then if people attribute it wrong, they try to sue them for like a couple thousand, $10,000. So, but this is really awesome. So we have people are, embedding OER textbooks and supplemental resources in your instructional design for a portfolio. This is awesome. Information literacy. We have some folks at UNM who are also working on information literacy, open materials too. So, okay, awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and go back to the presentation. So I feel like I'm talking too much, and I tried to break it up to where I wouldn't be talking as much. And I think coming up, we're gonna have an opportunity to do work on our own. So this next little section of the presentation, there's more than one way to create like a course that has no cost in terms of books for students. And so one way to do that is if you find materials through the library. And so this is just like some tips on finding free materials for your students through the library. And there's also at other colleges and universities initiatives to sort of like build up the programming to promote the open resources, or not open, but free resources at the library. But so library materials are free for students and they can be used to create free curriculum. You can consult a librarian for help finding the resources if you're having trouble. And then another tip for using library resources is you want to link back to the materials using the database permalink. That way, like, there's a few reasons why you would want to do this instead of, well, first off, if you download the materials and put them in your class as a PDF, you use it over and over again, that can be considered a violation of copyright, depending. But then also another reason to use the library database permalink is that the library can keep track of how many times materials are being accessed. And so they can know like which resources they need to keep when they're like negotiating for their next library subscription. So the permalinks can be a little bit difficult for students because they have to log into the library. So you kind of have to have that conversation with students about, this is how you log into the library. And you know, for some students, it takes like maybe a week or so for them to figure it out. But they can usually figure it out. Other things to consider if you're using library materials in your class is ebooks, streaming videos, journal articles. A lot of these digital materials the library doesn't own, so the availability of them can change from semester to semester. So you want to double check your links from semester to semester to make sure that they can still be accessed. And then also there's sometimes different restrictions. Can you guys hear my dog? I'm sorry. Is he really annoying?
No, we
No?
can't.
Okay.
No.
Okay, good. He's whining. So when you're using a library ebook, some ebooks have unlimited users, so lots of people can log in and use the material at once. Some of them have more restrictions. So if you have like a really big class and the material that you find just has one user at a time, that might be a problem for students. So those are just like some things to consider if you want to use library materials, but they can also be used to create like a free class or a class where there's zero textbook costs. Also, just linking to readings on the internet is also completely fine, and you're not violating copyright if you do that. If you take the material and you put it in your class as like a PDF, that could be considered a violation. But if you're pushing your students and their internet traffic to the website, they actually like that. So you're not violating copyright if you do that. Yeah, dogs are never annoying. All right. Let me see. Okay. So adopting, adapting, and creating. I think after this, there's an activity where you can talk amongst yourselves. So these are different ways that you can use OER and integrate OER into your classes. So, a lot of you might just be adopting materials. That's the easiest way to use OER. So you can consider adopting if you teach introductory concepts. The resource resonates with students' interests, identities, and background. It could easily replace the materials that you have. It already kind of like speaks to all of your outcomes in the course. There's different ways that the students could access the materials. That's super helpful too. You can also consider adopting if you have localized institutional expertise, VAL. And then, yeah, if it aligns with your outcomes and you don't have to change anything in order for students to get what they need to meet the outcomes for the class, then you can just straight up adopt and you don't need to do that extra work. There's still extra work with adopting. For example, you might need to, create some supplementary materials because, publishers' textbooks, they have courseware and things like that. So adopting still has some extra work that you might have to do, but it's easier than adapting or creating things from scratch. And when you're adapting the materials, you're changing them, but you're not starting from scratch with your own ideas. You're taking what someone else made and you might be modifying it for your student population, modifying it so that it's more interactive, modifying it so that it's more accessible, maybe combining materials together. So if you need to do any of those things, what that would be called is you're adapting the OER materials. So you can adapt materials as long as the license is open enough for you to do that. You might need to adapt your materials if you have you teach something advanced that's not out there, but you want to build on what someone else has made. You can totally do that if the license is open enough. You might want to adapt the materials if there's not diverse perspectives, the material's not accessible. Like I said, with our English textbook, we had to modify the materials so they weren't sexist. Like, really? But sometimes it's something that you have to do. I hope not as much in 2023, but back in 2015, that was definitely the case because the OER materials were like 10 years older. So you can also adapt if you need to create a custom resource. Yeah, and then maybe you need to adjust it so that aligns with your outcomes a little bit more. So that would be times in which you want to adapt the materials. And then lastly, you can also consider creating. So you can consider creating, maybe if you find that student voices are underrepresented in the materials that you have a unique need to address specific instructional needs, right? You need to create something new activities, cases, problems. Consider creating if you have institutional support, because that is super, that makes the process a lot easier. And like for me, we had institutional support at CNM in terms of like they were giving us extra compensation to create the materials. And when you have that motivation to meet the expectations of your administrators, like it kind of lights a fire under you to finish it. Whereas if you're creating the materials out of the goodness of your heart, that's a really super noble pursuit, but it takes longer. So in short, OER can level the playing field for your students. It can take lots of different formats. Can be a collection of items. It doesn't have to be a published book. There's lots of different ways you can integrate OER. You could, have modules in your course and link out to other things. Like that would be totally perfectly fine. And then, yeah, if you create something new by synthesizing works, you just need to make sure the licenses are compatible. Do y'all have questions? Here's the breakout activity. But does anybody have questions? No?
No questions.
Woohoo! That is awesome. Okay. You can ask questions and there are no stupid questions. I'm like a chronic question asker, so I welcome them. I'm going to go ahead and put this little prompt in here. But so Val, do we have breakout rooms?
I can create them if you would like. Like if we created 2, perhaps, would that be good? Okay.
Have people can talk amongst themselves, and then we could like reconvene and talk about what y'all discussed. But these are just things that can help us to figure out how we can support faculty, right? Like what kind of OER projects would you like to pursue? What subject? Do you have department support? What kind of support would you need? And yeah.
Okay, I am working on this. I'm going to create 2 rooms and trying to move some people around a little.
We had a fun discussion about for our 8-week terms, the OER actually minimizes dropout rates,
Oh, cool.
and this is a big concern that we're talking about, is not just the project, but how can it benefit the students? And if we can start looking at statistics and start looking at, does a lower price actually reduce dropout rates? I would love to know that. And if we have data on this, it would be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be data we're collecting for sure. I'm working with OPI to make sure that we have everything in place to identify the classes that have transitioned from a fee material to OER. So we'll definitely be looking at drop, delete, or drop D and F grades to see if those improve with the adoption of OER. So I'm super excited about looking at that data as well. And I think we will learn a lot by really investigating our students. I should also say OPI is really interested in doing some focus groups. So not only getting the data from people, but really interviewing students and faculty to make sure that this is something that is meaningful that it's meaningful, that it's not just saving money, but people have better experiences in classes and what those experiences are. So
Yeah, one of our greater challenges is the simulations, decision-based decision simulations, and so that's where it's going to be a lot more work. I have found platforms of nonlinear storytelling which we can create high iteration, almost a choose your own adventure through, which will result through HTML, which we can embed in the course, which is good for, you know, decision making and then doing metacognition with the decision making. So I'll be working on that one also. So it's beyond just the textbook, but how can we have a high iteration of, okay, if I make this decision, what happens and all that. So we can look at things like that, but I think that's more focused for very specific things, because if you're trying to create something larger, it gets way too complex and too much of a headache. But those are just my thoughts on the subject.
William was really excited about the topics that group was talking about. So he started talking about them right away when that room came back in. So please share.
Yeah, everybody else. What did y'all talk about? In our group, we talked about John and Steve talked about the classes that they wanted to. Well, no, Steve's already OER, but John talked about his course. So would you like to share? Oh, you're muted.
There we go. Yeah, Val, I was talking to you about that course I'm teaching about one of the courses is the substance abuse prevention. And that textbook I'd mentioned was from University of Las Vegas. It was written by 4 faculty members there, and it hasn't really changed. I think the original book came out in 2015 or something, and there hasn't been any new rewrites of it or new editions. But the book itself is really good. It's one of the best books I've seen as far as the topic itself, the prevention programs in the field of social work and substance abuse prevention. Jennifer did mention particular some websites that might have some resources on that. And I guess I'm interested in maybe exploring that down the road to see if they're just have a look at it and see what kind of material they do have. Some of the basic concepts of prevention programming are in the book, but some of the other stuff about social issues or drug use are kind of outdated a little bit in that textbook. So I kind of have to supplement the material with newer material in the class because the textbook sometimes is outdated. But anyway, that's an avenue that I like to explore as far as maybe finding an OER book for that class, because that's one of the textbooks I think that costs the most, I think, in the classes that I do teach. And there's no other, there's no ebook, and there's no, I mean, it's just a hard copy, period.
So do y'all have like support from, like, if you were to create materials or transition a course to OER, like, are your departments open to working with you on it? Or like for me personally, it helps when there's a buy-in at the beginning.
I'll go ahead and jump on it as I shared it with my small group, and I'm Dawn Wink and with Teacher Ed. And we, in the past couple of years, have moved all of our undergrad, all of our AA level early childhood courses to OER. Now, in this upcoming semester, this will be the first time that all of them are completed. We sort of implemented them, one semester at a time. One of the things that our group talked about is well, first of all, I wanted to clarify that it wasn't mandated, that it was that faculty had a choice, but we really talked about how it just depends on oftentimes the context of the class as far as whether to use a text, or because I was mentioning in my own experience, there are certain classes or certain content where there's like a text that people really need to read or to know. But in other content areas, it's wonderful to be able to pick and choose and weave together. And so, and as far as teacher ed, I think our faculty would really embrace this possibility, especially if it's a choice. And so I think it's a wonderful option to include in kind of the repertoire of different resources that instructors can use.
Mhm. I agree with the not mandating it. Like, people are so much more open to adopting if you don't force them. Mostly. But
In so many contexts.
yeah, that's how it was at CNM when I worked there. And I was so worried about the reception of the book that we created. But it's like when you make something for free and then you give it to people, like, they're pretty open to checking it out and considering it. So, I don't know. Anything else that y'all talked about that you would want to share? I should. But we have about a half hour. So how about I just go through this last part of I think I'm going to have enough time to do a little discussion of how we created OER when I was at CNM. So when we worked on this textbook, I wanted to make sure that I kept track of the steps, because this was a lot of work and I wanted for administration to know, like, this is how much time it takes. So that way, like, people wouldn't be expected in the future to just like make OER for the classes. Like, I wanted it. So I kind of kept track of the whole process. So to start off back in, I think it was 2015, I realized my students weren't buying the textbook, or I noticed they weren't buying the textbook for the English composition class. It was like $80. It was the Norton Anthology. And I asked my students, like, what is up? Like, why are you not buying the book? And then one of my students, super honest guy, was just like, I don't need to because the stuff is online. And then he showed me, like, the anthology was actually readings that were openly available online, and then they could just find stuff on the different genres. So that's when I realized, like, I need to find a way to not make my students pay $80 for the textbook. So I went to my dean and I asked her if I could if I could get a course release to create a class with no textbook, and it was going to be on the LMS. And then she was like, I like the idea, but how about you make it open? And I had never heard about Creative Commons licenses before. And so that started the whole journey into the OER world. So there were lots of obstacles back in 2015 for finding English books. And lots of obstacles for me, even just creating materials. I didn't know what a Creative Commons license was. It took me like 2 weeks to just even wrap my head around it. We didn't have a process. I never did it before. It was like hubris for me to think that we could actually make a book in like a couple of semesters. I didn't really think it was possible, but I thought I'd give it a shot. But yeah, there were so many different materials out there. So we had to figure out what were we going to use. The first thing that we wanted to see is, was there anything out there that we could just adopt? Because that would be the easiest thing, and there wasn't any material out there that would speak to all of the outcomes in our courses. We were able to find 7 different texts that covered the concepts and the different pedagogical approaches of our faculty. So we knew we wanted material from these 7 different texts, but how did we do that? Like, we created an outline, we needed to create structure. We worked a lot with the copyright librarian at CNM, who taught us about Creative Commons licenses, how we can integrate the material together, and how we should cite and attribute the material. But yeah, we just did not have a process. So this is a workflow chart that I adapted from another OER, maybe an OER specialist at the University of Hawaii. But this is what we needed. These are the steps. So like there's a priming phase, figure out, explore the materials in your area. Are you trained in OER and copyright? Are you confident to begin working with OER? When we started, I was like 0.5. I was like before the priming phase. And then there's the pre-production phase. We had to find the materials, curate them, create working docs. So we created like documents in the cloud and divided up the tasks. So really this took like maybe a few different semesters. This started one semester. Priming phase was maybe the first half of spring 2016. Pre-production, we were looking for materials. Still looking for materials the summer of 2016. And then once we knew what we wanted to adopt, then we started moving it over into a shared space. There's a scoping phase. We didn't have a specific, maybe we did have a publishing platform at the time, but it changed. The development phase. So like you see, these first 3 phases of this process are not even writing or revising. It's just planning. So there's like a lot of planning to do if you're adapting and creating something for a class. And then write and revise and do your accessibility checks, get peer review, and then publish it. So the research process. So the research process was next. So we had to find the materials and then also keep them organized. So when creating this OER book, we started with the outcomes. And we let the outcomes guide our choices. These were the outcomes for English 1110 back in 2015, I believe, and I do think they've changed. These were our outcomes at CNM, and they were before all of like the alignment of the different gen ed courses in New Mexico. So we use these to help guide us. And then we had so many different English outcomes for 1120 when we started this project. So, but we let them kind of like help us figure out what we needed to include. And then we just started doing research, hours of research. So these were the repositories and sites that we used back in 2015. Some of them don't exist anymore, like boundless.com doesn't exist anymore. I'm not sure if PanOpen still exists. I'm not sure if Bookboon exists, but that's what was out there. Lard Bucket, it sounds really weird, but they had a bunch of books that were OER. And then the first edition was OER. This company created them, and then they thought somehow they were going to make money from OER, but then they couldn't. So the second edition of all their books costed money, but the first edition stayed on the web. And it doesn't have like the authors or anything or the publisher. But these books are out there. It's kind of interesting. So we started doing research, and then we had to figure out what licenses we were going to use. So most of the materials that we found had CC BY SA or CC BY NC SA licenses. So we had to figure out, how do we want to license this big textbook? And so we had to determine that after looking at the different sources and identifying what their licenses were. And this is all like pre-writing phase. So CC compatibility chart is super helpful. Your best friend if you want to synthesize texts. Yeah, and then we just kept a log of all the resources. We started kind of like figuring out what pieces of these different sites did we want to use. So getting a little bit more in depth. And just listing like which pages on these sites did we want to use. Production flow chart. Yeah, I can share the production flow chart with you, definitely. And then we created a spreadsheet. So this was just the evaluation process. So at the bottom, this Zoom has a weird little toolbar that's prevents me from showing you that down here we had pretty much this spreadsheet, and there were different tabs for each of the books. And then we had rows for the different chapters, and had these different columns that told us, or that helped us to kind of determine, did we want to use the chapter? Where did we want to use it? And so this was a shared Google Sheet that my colleague and I used to just help us figure out which pieces of the textbooks did we want to use. And this was shared on the web, and then the Google Sheet kind of became this place where we communicated with each other. We could see where we were in the process. And then, with Google Sheets, you can also comment. You can tag the other person that you're working with in your document and ask them questions, and then they'll get a notification. So I can see it better now. We had like a wiki textbook, different large bucket books. So lots of spreadsheets. And then here's just an example of how the spreadsheet that we used with these different tabs became like this sort of communication tool. Like we'd put in comments and say, like, this is from me. If you like this, we can use it. I don't see a good rhetorical situations chapter, but we can, like we just kind of communicated our progress with each other and how we wanted to use the materials. And then we started adapting. So we had to figure out which chapters did we want to use, or no, what was the outline, right? And how are we going to organize the chapters? So we divided it up. So this was the textbook for 2 classes. And we had like part 1 with different chapters we knew we wanted to use. Part 2, we knew we wanted to write, have something about the writing process. We also had an idea of how we wanted the textbook to sound to students. So I didn't want it to be a stuffy English textbook. I wanted it to have a conversational tone that was inviting for students, that they could immerse themselves in and, feel included in the content instead of excluded by like annoying the English teacher, like complicated grammar. Like, let's just make it easy. Let's make it simple and to the point. And so after we structured it, we kind of worked on streamlining the content. But so like for English 1110, it was 1101 at the time. We knew we needed these different genres to cover for the classes that we were teaching. And then we knew for 1120 we would need to cover analysis, analytical writing, argumentative writing. And then we had also APA and MLA chapters. So one of the hard things about creating OER and adapting OER 8 years ago is that there was no easy way to like take the material from the web and import it into your platform. With Pressbooks, you can do that pretty easily now. We didn't have Pressbooks. So what we did with all of this material is we knew where it was, we knew where we wanted to put it from the spreadsheet. And then we had this outline of chapters, and then we just copied and pasted all the stuff over, and it took such a long time. I tried to find a better way to do it, and there just wasn't. So now it's like so much easier. Like LibreTexts, also you can create a book and import materials from other people's courses into your own book, and the license will carry over. None of that was available in 2015. And so in Google Docs, we kept track of our writing. So the blue font was what we added. And then the black font was what we copied and pasted over. So that way we knew, like, kind of just to keep track of what writing was from where. And then at the bottom of each of these different chapters, we would say where it was adapted from and then include the license. One of the things that was difficult with adapting OER is that it actually goes against everything I had ever learned in all of my academic writing courses. Like the traditional rules of copyright and quoting, they don't actually apply. So with OER, you can take a text, adapt it, and you don't have to like say each, like which parts were from you, which parts were from the original source. You can just say this was adapted by me from this source. And that's fine because the license allows you to do that. The material's still copyrighted to the original owner, but the CC license tells the people who are using the material later on, this is how you can use my material after it's out there in the world. So traditional rules are you're plagiarizing if you copy ideas, words, or even syntax. And that's not the case with OER. You just have to make sure you're attributing and telling people where it originally came from and that you adapted it and you're good. So that was really hard at first. It felt like such a big obstacle for me to get over. I felt like I was cheating and I felt like I was going to get busted. And that's just not the case. But so basic components of attributing with Creative Commons. So those attributions that you see at the bottom, these are the 4 things that you need to include. The title of the work that you're using, the author, the source. So you always want to like hyperlink back to the original source. And then also hyperlink to the text. No, sorry, to the legal code. Hyperlink back to the legal code, and then you're good to go. Because that's what makes it it shows the reader that you're abiding by the rules of this license if you're linking back to it. And so that was also really hard for me to wrap my head around. I was like, I don't need to register this with someone. Nope. You don't and then publishing on the internet, it's out there. I mean, once it's out there, it's out there. So, yeah. So we revised this material, adapted it, and then there was still more work. We had to edit and proofread. So for editing, we compiled the document together, and we enlisted our English colleagues to proofread and help us edit the material, and they did it as like part of their college service, and they could like put that down on their annual review. But yeah, moving the material from Google Docs to HTML required more proofreading. And then the proofreading took almost as long as compiling the document. So it's like a big part of the process. These are just all of the curve, like, so you start off like, oh yeah, we're going to finish by this date. And then you get curveballs. We piloted the beta version of the book in I think we actually got it the fall of 2016, and it was all just PDFs. We didn't have it on an actual platform until later, and our distance learning department helped us put it on that platform. But the original platform that they used, the fancy platform that like Brandon Morgan's book was on, his book used to have these really cool like interactive maps, this company that they used. It was really awesome and visually appealing, but out of nowhere, they raised the price of their platform by tens of thousands of dollars. And so then CNM was like, we can't pay for that. Can't pay for $60,000 for this platform that, had like 2 or 3 books on it. So then really fast distance learning had to take the material and put it on like the CNM server, and doing that necessitated more proofreading. And then they changed it again to another platform that was better than the CNM server platform. So it was so much work. But I think we might be close to time now. I don't know what time it is. I was thinking
We
like
have about 10 minutes. Yeah.
have like 10 minutes. So, okay, you guys can see yeah, I was thinking we could take some time to go to the repositories and maybe do a little bit of research on your own, but we've kind of run out of time for that. So maybe instead we can move to questions.
Jennifer, how long was that process to get that OER book for English? It's
Like
on
2 years.
2 years, yeah.
Yeah. And then to make it more appealing for faculty to adopt, we also had to create shells in Blackboard that they could copy over and use, because I mean, otherwise it would just be too much work, for people who already had shells using the publisher textbook and the publisher materials. So we just really quick busted out some shells they could copy. And that was a lot of work too. But I mean, what happened is like, people started adopting it more. The early adopters were like the super excited younger faculty members who knew about open licenses and they were comfortable with technology. Like the go-getters adopted it first. And then other people slowly started adopting the curriculum after that. Sometimes people want to see like, and I mean, this is true of academics, right? They want to see with their eyes. I mean, is there evidence that this is going to be good? And once they see like, oh, so-and-so taught with the book and it was fine and their students learned, so now I can try it. And so it kind of just grew semester by semester. And then now, at first it was the optional textbook. And then a few years after, it was put on a platform and piloted, it became the default English textbook. So it happened kind of organically.
It seems like there's faculty buy-in for any type of new content, textbooks, or even how we traditionally do things.
Yeah. And like some faculty just couldn't wrap their head around like not having a book. Like they just wanted like the tangible thing
A hard
to
copy,
hold in
yeah.
their hands. And so once they realized like I can use it the same as a book, that was kind of like a breakthrough for some folks. More questions?
Okay, this question is a little bit offbeat. In my research, I have found very little on the topics of restaurant management, food service management, and hotel management. There's nothing out there in the OER realm that I've found. I know currently Santa Fe Community College and UNM are not really covering these topics as well. Would this be something that we could look into and venture into the future? Even though it's not something it may benefit Santa Fe Community College and other community colleges with restaurant management and University of Southern New Mexico with their hospitality program. I've just not found anything.
Have you tried Skills Commons?
I'll take a look at Skills Commons. I just found it like absolutely crazy that you might get introduction to tourism and that is it. For business, for economics, for accounting, for marketing, there's tons of stuff. But the moment you say hotel management, the OER world just goes silent.
Yeah, you might want to try this one here.
Okay.
Let's see. It looks like they have, I could share screen too. And I think like Valencia campus at UNM would have courses that would use this type of material.
Okay.
But I mean,
Because I'd be interested in working with it on someone, even though it's not directly what I'm teaching now. It's a frustration point, and it's something I would be interested in working on, especially since I have built hospitality courses from scratch in the past.
You've built them
Yeah,
from
for
scratch?
RMIT, Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology.
Yeah, I mean, like maybe CUNY might have something. It looks like they have at least a syllabus. So you could try that. Oh, I would say you could try maybe Oasis MetaFinder. I don't know if BC Open Campus would have materials, but
I've
I
looked.
do.
I've looked.
You looked? Okay, because I
I've
know they do
looked.
have some stuff for other trades. I think I saw something with plumbing maybe over there. But yeah, those are two resources. But I mean, I could also help you look if you want to just like shoot me an email.
Right. I'll discuss this later since it's not directly something for Santa Fe Community College right at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, because like CNM has hospitality and tourism programs too. So, I mean, they might be interested, or maybe they have materials. Who knows?
I think it's a really cool idea, William, and I'm happy to help you search as well. Part of this grant needs to as Jennifer explained, go toward proving that we're increasing employment or providing employment opportunities to students who use the OER. And I know in the past in Santa Fe, this has been a big funnel to employment for people. So I think it's definitely worth exploring. You know, we can work, Jennifer, you, I, whoever can work together to make the necessary connections across the state. I know sometimes those are difficult to find, and we can make those connections as well. And then if New Mexico is unique and needs to have a special aspect of this addressed, I'm guessing working in casinos and the flow between that type of hospitality and non-casino work might be something worth addressing that would be unique in our state. That would be an exciting thing to add and create for OER that could be used by people here.
Yeah, I was looking, there was almost a creation of OER within Southeast Asia with Charles Darwin University in Australia building it up, but it kind of fell apart because no one wanted to churn Southeast Asia into the EU because they're afraid of people from other countries flooding their countries and everybody in Indonesia going to Singapore for work. So it kind of fell apart. It was almost there. There is materials, but everything fell apart, and I don't know if we want to be using materials developed in Australia.
Oh yeah, I see ecotourism in Laos on the Oasis MetaFinder. So yeah. There's
We're
also
about at
Libre
time.
texts too. Libre text might be a good one. But yeah, out of time. Sorry. Wow.
And
Yeah. Sorry to hijack.
Jennifer's email is in the chat too, if you want to cut and paste that and bring it into your.
Definitely.
But I'm happy to connect you all too. So.
Okay. Yeah. We'll discuss this further just because it's something I think I would be interested in going further with.
Great.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you, Jennifer. This has been great and really inspiring. I think it's a great way to start off our semester, and we'll all be working together really closely with the grant and hopefully connecting people across our various campuses. So we're not duplicating work and really sharing our findings and the information we're providing our students. So thank you so much.
Thank you. This is awesome. Have a good week.
Thanks,
and
Jennifer.
Start to your semester.
Thank you, Jennifer.
You.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Thanks, Val.
Thank you.